We connected with Vernon when we did our first supplemental episode, which was on the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas. Vernon was what you could probably call the de facto historian of the experience. Not only had he worked there, but he had also done a lot to document the experience's time in existence, if you will. So that's how we got to know Vernon. And after that supplemental episode, he appeared on quite a few more episodes of the podcast. And when you listen, you'll hear what a passionate person he was about Star Trek. He was also extremely talented. Rest in peace, Vernon.
Hi, everyone. We were all deeply saddened to hear about Vernon's passing. Like Craig said, Vernon was a big part of the early days of our podcast, and we spent a lot of hours talking to him about all things Star Trek and Star Trek the Experience and all kinds of things. But we thought it would be a nice way to remember him, to go back and make some clips out of the old podcasts and put them together. And through doing that, we found quite a few stories that he told us about his life and all of his time at the experience and how much that all meant to him. And there's some stories about some family in there, and we had there's a lot of good laughs too. There's so many funny moments. He was a really funny guy. So we put together quite a few clips from those old shows, and we're gonna play those for you now. So rest in peace, Vernon.
And we have a special guest with us for this introduction, back to give us a bit of an update on his My Experience project. So welcome back to the show, Vernon Wilmer.
How you doing?
All right, how are you?
All right. Good to hear from you guys again.
Oh, it's very good to hear from you. We've been looking forward to speaking to you again for quite a while.
So I guess we can just start off by asking the question, what's been going on with My Experience lately?
Well, it's going through a re-edit. For a long time I was working on part 4, and the reason it was going so slow is because the way I do this had changed, and I was thinking about redoing 1, 2, and 3. Not like George Lucas redo, but actually making them tighter and easier to watch. And I decided that when I got a full-time job again, which was a couple of years after Star Trek The Experience, it started eating up all my time. So lately I've become kind of antisocial, and I'm devoting all of my free time to the series, and very successfully going through the first 3 episodes and re-editing them so they'll have a better quality for, I plan to offer them on disc through the Facebook site. That's kind of in the works. I don't have a solid plan yet, but that's definitely what's going to happen. And I might re-offer them again online through Vimeo, if I can get that to work for the way I want to show it. But these will now be split up. Say each individual episode will have a first disc, which is the documentary episode, and then a bonus disc, which has a whole bunch of stuff that pertains to the episode, but I don't want it to eat up the episode's time.
Excellent.
And that was one of my first mistakes with the original edits of those first 3 episodes.
Very cool. So I had seen on the website that you had reshot some of your driving scenes.
Yeah. The opening of part 1, if anybody remembers, involves me driving to work during the opening title sequence. And that was actually shot in 2008 actually a couple of times, me driving to work. And when it came time to re-edit, I realized I hadn't saved the raw footage where I would have titling sequences over it in the final edit. So I actually had to recently mount the camera back on the vehicle and go driving again just to get those shots again because I really liked them. And it was kind of nostalgic driving along that old route to Star Trek The Experience. Those came out nicely. They fit in with the original footage. And I've already had a comment. Someone was upset that, well, it's nice that you reshot that, but it's not really the same anymore because Star Trek The Experience doesn't exist and you're not really going there. But that footage of the hotel and approaching it is still the original footage. The only thing I reshot was way out on the east end of town with me driving to work. It's the same desert. It hasn't changed.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. If you hadn't said anything, only probably the most astute viewer would have noticed that. I know I am very much looking forward to seeing the updated work when it's done. And the best way for people to get updates is via the Facebook page?
Yeah, absolutely. I put something up there about every week about it.
All right, we'll make sure to link to that in the show notes.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
As soon as I have a narration with a voice that I'm happy with, I will be putting the opening sequence of part 1 up there on the site, just as an example of what the new quality of the series is going to look like.
Oh, excellent.
Cool. So, Vernon, since
I always hate my own voice.
We all do.
Yeah, we had that problem too when we first started doing this show. Since we have you here, I just two things just occurred to me that I want to ask you that just sprung into my mind. The first one is we had April on the show not long ago, and we had her give her perspective and story behind her part in the Star Trek magazine article. We didn't really get your side of it because you're in there too. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was exciting. The editor, his name escapes me at the moment. Nice guy over in the UK, contacted us about a retrospective piece on the experience. I believe it's Star Trek magazine issue 48. We missed issue 47 by 1, unfortunately. I went ahead and offered. He just had a few questions and wanted some pictures. I gave the poor guy a whole 5,000 word, only half of my interview appears in the magazine, but I was very happy to see all my pictures splashed through there. The part of the article he left in was me basically talking like a giddy fan. Oh, this place is so cool. It has this and it does this. But the second half of my article was left out, not only for length, but also it was the negative half. It's what went wrong, why it closed, how much we miss it, that sort of thing. So it turned out okay. I think his name was Chris Cooper. I want to say Chris Cooper.
That sounds right. I don't have the magazine handy. And you did, I don't know if it was on your personal page or on the experience page, you did post the complete unedited copy that you had sent in.
Yeah, it should still be up there.
All right. Yeah, we'll try and find that as well so people can read that if they're interested.
It's attached to the scans of the article I posted on the site.
All right, perfect.
And the other question, and this is a very recent thing, actually as recent as yesterday, your April Fool's joke on Facebook. How well did that go over?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't get the response I expected. Only a handful of people responded to it and were like, oh, yeah, sure, April Fool's, Vernon. But actually, I had 36 people leave the site, so they fell for it. I'm working on getting them back. And it has opened yet another time. It has opened a, JJ versus canon debate on the page, which I try to avoid because I like having all the people, the fans who are liking the page and reading the material. I like having them on there, and I try to downplay the dislike for the JJ universe as much as possible because it puts some of them off.
Yeah.
They are in the minority, but, still, I like to keep everybody happy on that page.
Yeah, and my take on it is, and this is any time that anything gets sort of reimagined, rebooted, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, anything that puts eyes on the original product is a good thing. Like when the Three Stooges movie came out, there were people complaining about that. And I was like, if a handful of 20-year-olds go out and watch those classic Stooge shorts and enjoy them, then that movie did its job.
I agree. In fact, I've seen examples of it. I work at the Venetian, and there's a lot of kids in their 20s that work there, and they talk about how they went to go see the Star Trek movie. They know I used to be an actor at Star Trek The Experience, so they tell me about it. And they're like, so yeah, I went to Netflix and started watching all the old episodes. By the way, Vernon, what order should I watch Star Trek in? And I've given them the whole list of 700 episodes in the order they should watch them in. So that is working in that sense.
Yeah, beautiful.
I've always been a Trekkie. I was, standard nerd boy that grew up in the 70s watching it in syndication. and loved the movies. I have equal love of Star Wars and Star Trek. There's room for both in my heart.
We agree.
Yeah, it sounds like Vernon and I are very similar in that respect.
Excellent. And it was just a fluke that I ended up auditioning and getting cast at the experience when I came here to Nevada. It was just unexpected happenstance.
Mm-hmm. Now
serendipitous.
Exactly. Now it's briefly covered in the documentary, but so your basically door into the experience was more of an audition process as opposed to an interview experience, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the original interview process, there were about 5,000 of us to audition for 120 positions back in '97. So yeah, that was crazy. It took a couple of days to get through all those people.
And when I came in, that was halfway through Star Trek's run when they added Borg Invasion. So that was a much smaller audition. They did it in small groups in-house over the course of about a month. There were 14 or 16 Borg hired initially for Borg Invasion. We would rotate through both the attraction and walk-around characters on, the promenade. That ended pretty quickly that first year. We were just relegated to the attraction after that because we had a standout floorboard character. It was Michael Hartnett as 3 of 6, and it was thought that he should stand alone on the promenade. So we were just kept in Borg Invasion, and I was actually the first Borg. I was one of the Borg that was initially hired. I was the first Borg to do the opening of Borg Invasion, and all the other Borg fell away over the years, and I was the last Borg standing from Borg Invasion at the end.
Oh wow! Towards the end of the run of the experience, you were not out on the floor. It was just 3 of 6 who was out there.
Yeah, 3 of 6 was from 2002 all the way up till 2008. He was always on the floor. The Borg Invasion Borg were only used as kind of props instead of characters, and were very rarely used on the floor or in weddings.
Now, Vernon, you were a Borg, so I'd imagine that the Borg costuming and makeup was a little bit more challenging than some of the other makeup.
There's a lot of things I miss about the experience, but I do not miss wearing that outfit. We had very little makeup to do because only our hands and small portions of our face were exposed. Everything else was covered. We were covered from head to toe in very thick foam latex, and it was very hot and very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because when Craig and I were there in '08, just before the closing, and we met up with the floorborg, as it was, the costume that he had on looked very heavy, and it looked almost like he was having a little bit of a tougher time, moving around in it. So when you were wearing those, you had to wear those for a long shift. How long were the normal shifts?
The floorboard was different from the attraction Borg. Michael would have to be on the floor for approximately 30 minutes entertaining guests, and then he would have 30 minutes off, get out of the costume and relax. That went on for, I believe, depending on what her schedule was like, anywhere from a 6 to an 8-hour shift. The attraction Borg were basically an hour on and an hour off. And you always loved going on break because you got out of you'd have to go to wardrobe. They would have to get you out of the costume. It's almost impossible to do by yourself. Taking out the undressing and dressing time, you had about 30 minutes to relax.
Yeah, so Vernon, let's talk a little bit about your documentary series, My Star Trek Experience. It's pretty amazing in the sense that you have 90-minute and 2-hour installments. How did you go about, first of all, coming up with the idea for it, and then compiling all of the footage and doing all of the research that you did?
Well, first I want to start off by saying that those 3 episodes that are currently online should be considered very rough cuts. I'm going back through and re-editing everything in high definition.
Oh, excellent.
I'll probably stop posting them online. I might make them only available as DVDs through the Facebook page for the documentary. But that's something probably towards the end of the year. But I started getting into it because I've always been a frustrated filmmaker ever since I was a kid. I dabbled in entertainment a little bit in L.A., but when I got this job at the Experience, it was such a magical thing. I thought I should document every second from, the moment I was hired for as long as I was there, and then someday when it was gone, because all good things end, I would just make my opus about it. Here's this cool thing I got to do. But the project grew so large over the years, it went from being a small documentary to a documentary series of feature-length episodes, because the more that people found out what I was doing, the more they started volunteering material. And that still goes on to this day. Next week I'm meeting with one of the early actresses there who has a ton of photos for me to scan into the archive from backstage.
Now, were you friendly or friends with April prior to or through working at the Experience? And did you approach her about doing this documentary, or is it sort of a friendship that grew from doing the documentary?
I didn't know anybody there. I had just moved here from California and pretty much immediately got the job just a few months into living here. I was still getting set up. And I didn't know these people would all become my family. They're my family now. The funny thing about April, she didn't even know who the hell I was for the first number of months I worked there. The Borg Invasion cast was very separated from the Klingon Encounter cast. They kind of viewed us as these new kids coming in, taking over their, their hours and their building. But I'd like to think I'm one of the people who started bridging the gap and being social with everybody. Eventually, the two crews integrated. But no, as far as the documentary goes, I never really talked to any of my friends at work about it. I didn't even start it until after the Experience closed. I was just collecting material for it while I was working there.
So, Vernon, we both, Craig and I both watched all three parts of the documentary, and something that I had wondered about was, did you have to get any special permission?
I never get permission to do anything, ever. It's more of a forgiveness versus permission sort
Understood.
of thing. In fact, first few weeks I worked there, they stressed the no cameras policy. You can't take pictures in here. But then when we were being fitted for masks and costumes, they were taking a bunch of pictures out of necessity. Those pictures started getting shared, and eventually people just started sneaking cameras in and taking photos, and I just ran with it. I did get myself in trouble a couple of times, not the least of which was making a little kind of a home Star Trek movie backstage between shows, and then YouTube had just become popular in like 2006. I decided to go ahead and post it. Paramount saw it, and they contacted our management, and they went nuts. I was almost fired immediately.
Wow. So in terms of doing the research, one of the things I really loved about the early episode was I didn't know any of the particulars that led to the Experience being there. For me, it was sort of just like, okay, one day the Experience opened up in Las Vegas. How did
it just magically appeared?
How did you dig through that history, or did you rely on people like April and other local Las Vegas, citizens to sort of piece that together? Did you go to the library? Did you use Google? How did you really construct that or put that puzzle together?
Well, it comes from caring and being a documentarian, like I am, an amateur documentarian. But any piece of information I was missing, I would go to a number of sources, to people who had been at the Experience since day one. Sometimes management would commission me to do in-house videos, and I would get access to a lot of archived stuff. There was a lot of Googling after the Experience closed. There's no shortage of articles on how the Experience got started. There's even been articles in books that I've had on my shelf for ages and never knew the story was in there. Mm-hmm. So, there's still a ton of stuff I don't know. but I think I've got the biggest collection of material on the experience that anybody's bothered to ever put together.
So, Vernon, since you came in a little bit later on in the experience, what was your training and preparation experience?
Well, for the Borg, it was a lot different from any other kind of training. We were taught in action and how not to speak and how not to emote. We were movable props in Borg Invasion. We had no dialogue. We had to learn how to move correctly and react correctly. That's about it. It entailed a lot of watching Borg episodes, sitting backstage. And I remember our trainer, Paul Mattingly, who was another one of the character actors there, he had lined up a number of Borg episodes for us. And one was coming up that I hated. The one with Hugh, third of 5. I think it's called iBorg.
Yeah, iBorg.
And I just had to raise my hand and said, Paul, can we skip that one?
Yeah, not one of my favorite Borg episodes.
And he goes, okay, Vernon, you got it. We're going to skip that one. They taught us how to do our makeup, and then finally the costumes came in, and the hardest part of that job was getting into those costumes. It took us a long time to learn how to do it.
I don't want to harp too much on the closure of the experience, but as we mentioned, me and Jeff were there in August, and it was pretty touching to see that wall of memories. What did that whole experience mean to you guys, and do you have any special memories from the last few months at the experience?
When people started coming and put the wall of memories up there, and people came back, once they knew that it closed. There were people that made special trips just to see us one more time. And that really meant something to me, to know that. And they would tell us that. And some friends of ours, Jerry and Francine, actually made a point to come to Quarks every night. I think, how long did they?
Over a month.
I think it was like
40, 41 days.
I think it was more than that. I think it was like 55 days or whatever, because we had 2 months, from the time they said it was going to close till it actually closed. And so once the word got out that it was closing, Jerry and Francine were there every single night in the bar.
I have to say about Jerry and Francine as quickly as I can. We have a lot of friends that were guests at the experience that just chose to befriend us. But those two, starting with they had a bridge wedding at Star Trek The Experience in 2005. I was the Borg in their wedding party. And Chirac, we had Chirac the Klingon, Mark Weitz. Well, after my shift, I usually went to Quarks to hang out and drink as a civilian. And there they were in the bar. They recognized me. They bought me a drink. They showed me their photos. And we've been really close friends ever since then. And even after the experience closed, their home is open to us. They throw us parties all the time, the cast, the crew. They've even attempted to, successfully recreate as best they could Quark's bar in their living room. There's just so much love there.
So I saw in the documentary early on there were some visits to the experience by some of the stars of some of the series, like Jonathan Frakes and Kate Mulgrew. Did you guys get to spend any time with them while they were there?
Too much time sometimes. I really upset Shatner once.
Oh.
He was there in 2006 for filming a promo for the 40th anniversary of Star Trek. Like I said, the Borg have to run to wardrobe, get undressed. If you've got to pee, it's a horrible experience. And Shatner had closed off the employee break room area so he could have it for himself. So this Borg goes running past his men and gets undressed in wardrobe and invades the bathroom. Oh, what's going on here? I thought I had this all to myself.
You never said that story.
That's a good one.
That's fabulous.
And one more for Vernon real quick. I wanted to ask you, what was the inspiration behind your Duck Dodgers Star Trek 3 mashup video?
That's one of my earliest videos. I won a convention competition with that one way back in the mid-'90s, I think. The inspiration for that, I think I remember exactly, it was 1986 1997. It was the 10th anniversary Star Wars celebration in L.A., and some college kids had done a Duck Dodgers video similar to that, but with Return of the Jedi footage. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And being an amateur editor, I went home and thought, well, I want to do something like that, but not, I got to make it different. And I was watching Star Trek 3 one day, and I thought, oh, well, there's footage there that'll fit perfectly into that, probably even better than the Star Wars one did. So it was not my idea. I stole it from somebody else. I just changed it up a bit. And they've been playing it at the con ever since I entered it. It's played every year.
So we're happy to welcome back to the show Mr. Vernon Wilmer. How's it going, Vernon?
Fine.
Great to have you back on the show. How's things out in Vegas?
It's perfect weather right now. We're right in between severe winter and absolute hell. Thanks for asking.
Nice. What temperature would that be for everybody in our listening audience?
81 degrees.
Wow.
Oh, beautiful.
And that's a dry heat, right?
That is correct. For now, it is, yes, dry.
Awesome. So, Vernon, let's just segue right into you. Thoughts on Andorians?
Oh, well, I thought they were a cool alien race for the original series. They had the classic, alien look for sci-fi with the antenna and a different colored skin and whatnot. They didn't really explore them, of course, until Enterprise, when they fleshed out the race and even gave us the subspecies, the Anar. But before that, their mysteriousness is actually what made them compelling, almost the Boba Fett, if you will, of the Star Trek series. I just think they have a fascinating look, whether they were mysterious on the old series or fleshed out in the modern series. It's just a compelling addition to the show. And plus, two Andorians from Star Trek The Experience are two of my closest friends, so I have a biased opinion on Andorians.
As you probably should.
I would like to point out that through no small effort of my own, April is the proud owner of a Barbie doll from Mattel.
That's right.
It is the only Barbie doll in existence. It's run one of one of Barbie as Tarin, which was made by the R&D department there at Mattel. I have an ex-girlfriend and at the time and some friends who worked there and put that together for her birthday back in 2009.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Right? Some nice friends or what? Man, that was a great present.
That's pretty awesome. Do you think you could furnish us with a picture of that, April?
I would be glad to.
Oh, that's so awesome. We're really glad. We'll post that up with the episode when we put it up. So, Vernon, while we're talking about this, do you have any Tarin memories that you can share? Any stories?
Well, I want to point out that her, as well as Kastran, who was played by our friend Kirsten, their antenna were Michael Westmore antenna, straight from the Enterprise Andorian molds, adding some legitimacy to their makeup and their character. God, what would I guess my favorite Andorian moment on the floor would be out there at Star Trek The Experience was that Kirsten, as Kastran, had this deadpan look.
Oh, yeah.
That you couldn't even look him in the eyes. And April was out there. It was after work. I was just sitting in the bar having a drink at Quark's. And there's T'Pryl out on the floor, which is April's Vulcan character.
My Vulcan character, right. Not Tarin.
Right. She's Vulcan, so Vulcans no emotion, no laughing. Well, in walks Kastran, which is Kirsten as an Andorian. And while T'Pryl is talking to me, I'm sitting there at the bar having my drink, he's just standing behind her. She realizes someone's behind her and looks him in the eyes and then starts to lose it and gets off the floor really quickly because the Vulcan's going to start laughing. I think that was my favorite Andorian moment on the floor.
That's pretty funny. I could picture. Do you remember that, April?
Oh, yeah. You know what? He did that to me a couple of times.
And all he has to do is look at you. Just look at you.
Yes, and he's got a look. I don't even know how to describe it, but I would just try so hard not to bust up because, I was a Vulcan, because he and I there were never two Andorians on the floor. Basically, we talked smack about each other, when we were on the floor as our Andorian characters. His character hated my character hated his character. So all we did was talk smack. So we were never in the same room at the same time.
All right. Vernon.
I almost married a girl back in my California years who I swear must have been a Tellarite, because all she wanted to do was argue, and she got fat after a number of years. And I'm not going to throw out any names, but I got to say that the Tellarites, they, unlike the Andorians, they hadn't been brought back until Enterprise. And when they did, Michael Westmore is such a genius when it comes to segueing makeup into the modern series. Those horrible eye cutouts they had on the original masks in Journey to Babel were worked into the Michael Westmore makeup scheme for Enterprise, and kind of explained, okay, well, that wasn't a horrible eye cutout. That was just an extra rim around their eye. Now you can see it closer and more sharply, and that explains that. He did a great job legitimizing the original look of the Tellarites.
Vernon, can I just say that you could probably have a great stand-up comedy act talking about your ex-girlfriends.
She's an endless source of material. Endless source.
You always have some great stories for us about your exes when we talk to you. So anybody have any thoughts on the imbalance of appearances on Tellarites?
I don't think I have anything else on Tellarites.
Okay.
Well, I just can't figure out how they ended up as founding members of the Federation.
Yes.
Yeah, really. Why'd they let them in?
How did that happen?
I think that's a Roddenberry influence. I think he's what Star Trek is saying there is that you can take the most disagreeable line of species and have them be part of something that's grand and better for the whole, that you need even that negative influence in your mix to make the thing work.
Wow, that is deep, Vernon.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, I've been drinking, so it's all coming out.
What have you been drinking, Vernon?
I am having a rum and Coke Zero.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Romulan Ale and Coke Zero.
But, if I could get some, I'd be drinking it. It's hard to come by these days.
Oh, well, maybe we can get you some blue Curacao and mix it up with something else, and we could call it Romulan Ale.
Oh, this reminds me of some guy at the bar took a shine to Tarin and tried to buy her a drink, and she said she didn't drink that human swill. So he made the bartender mix the silver tequila and blue Curacao together and put it in shot glass.
Didn't that become a standard drink at Parks after that?
That's Andorian Ale.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was some guy trying to hit on Tarin.
I'd like to point out that when they were making whenever they invented something new on the menu at the experience, they would ask the employees, hey, what should we name this, or what should we make this out of? And when they were coming up with a Borg drink to herald the Borg invasion attraction opening there, they asked us, Borg, hey, what do we name this green drink that's going to be Borg themed? Which ended up being called the Borg Sphere, which is pretty cool because it was served in the sphere. But my suggestion was that we call it the Omega particle, which is the holy grail for Borg, and it kind of looked like one. But I got shot down.
Oh.
So I'm going to invent a drink and call it the Omega particle, and I'm going to pass the recipe around at the convention this year.
There you go.
As much as fans bellyache about the animated series and it not being considered canon and stuff, I'll take that over the JJ universe any day. And stuff in the yesteryear resonated on into Enterprise. You had the Scalot and the Forge and all that 3-part episode on Vulcan. That all came from yesteryear.
Nice. I can always leave it to Vernon to get the dig in on JJ.
Try not to go there.
No, one day we aspire to get Vernon and JJ on the show at the same time.
I get hate mail for being a JJ hater. And I don't hate JJ. He made a wonderful television series, Lost. I loved it, except for the end. But and I was excited when I found out he was in charge of Star Trek. But like when I went to go see The Phantom Menace in 1999, I was completely let down and went home crying.
Okay, let's. Now that we brought up the Phantom Menace, we've hit a new low on the tricorder transmissions. Let's
not to get too into the JJ Star Treks, but I think the main problem, Vernon, is, and we might have talked about this before, is they went from making a movie for Star Trek fans to a movie that could appeal to every demographic so they could hit the box office number that they needed to hit.
Sure, and the argument is, hey, even if Trekkies don't like these two films, it's bringing in new fans to watch all the original material. But I'll tell you what JT and his writers did from the onset. They took Star Trek, the whole 40-year canon, minced it up into little pieces and put it in a blender, and said, hey, well, this has elements of Star Trek in it, and we slapped it together in a liquid that doesn't make sense. So drink it! Drink it, fans!
All right, Vernon, while we're here, we've descended into this quagmire. So I remember when we were in Las Vegas and we were hanging out with you and April. April told a story about how you walked out on a Star Trek, a JJ Star Trek movie. Would you refresh us on that, please?
That was the
Star
best
Trek
thing that ever happened in the movie theater.
Well, should I let you tell that one, April?
No, you tell it.
Well, okay. All right. Yeah, God, the anticipation of Into Darkness, which is a perfect title for that movie, is coming up that who is the bad guy? We don't get who the bad guy is. Well, how does he relate to Star Trek? And then the rumors start coming up that he's Khan. And I'm like, there's no way this skinny British kid could be Khan, so that's not right. And then halfway through the film, I pick up on their little clues, the 72 canisters and the so on and so forth, and I'm thinking, oh, shit, this guy's going to be Khan. And then finally, the scene halfway through the film, and I'm seeing this film with my two colleagues, April and Nicole, both actresses from Star Trek The Experience. And Nicole starts to see it in my face. Oh, he's figured it out, and he's getting angry. And as soon as the part comes up where Cumberbatch has the close-up and he says, my name is Khan, I threw my popcorn up into the air and I said, I'm done. And I walked out of the theater. And I went to the bar and I had some drinks and I did some gambling. And the whole theater, apparently, in my absence, is roaring and laughing. And
they loved it. They loved it. They laughed. And people were going, don't go.
I did go back to see it another time and watch the whole thing. In fact, I have the Blu-ray because a friend of mine at work bought me the Blu-ray thinking I would like it. I was very gracious. Thank you.
And that'll be added to Netflix within the next couple of days.
Cool.
So we'll bring an iPad down and we can all watch it together when we're in Vegas. And Vernon can throw popcorn.
Yeah, you have to bring some popcorn so he can recreate that because it was a thing of beauty. It was so fabulous and it was so well timed. And it was so funny because he had stayed away from all the, the hoopla. So it was a total surprise to him. Well, maybe not a total surprise, but it was, it was a totally natural reaction.
There's only one other movie I've ever walked out on, and that was Lost in Space. And I was on a date with a girl who didn't know any better. And when it got to I was suffering through it, but when the part came where the purple animated monkey kissed Matt LeBlanc like Bugs Bunny, I did the same thing. I threw my popcorn in the air and I said, well, I'm done. Where are you going, Vernon? I'll be in the bar.
All right, Craig, make a note. We need to start seeing movies with Vernon.
Yeah.
This sounds awesome to me.
I'm not afraid to walk out of a movie that sucks. I'm not afraid.
Vernon, thoughts on the love gesture?
I've tried it. It's not very satisfying.
Were you ever able to do that as a Borg?
No. No, but there were worse things done to me as a Borg on the floor that I can't even get into for public. Let's just say there was a middle-aged woman once who thought I was a statue because I was standing in retail staring at some merchandise. Thought I was a Borg statue and made some pretty intimate connections that when I moved, finally, it freaked her out.
Wait, so she was using her fore and middle fingers somehow?
There her fingers involved.
This is going downhill fast.
That's all I have to say about that, as Forrest Gump would say. What April's leaving out is during our closing ceremony, the final day of Star Trek The Experience, which is on DVD if you have the box set of the original movies. T'Pril, which April was playing that night, was presented with the Federation flag, which hung over our atrium, or our foyer. The whole 11 years the place was open. She was presented with that at the end of the red carpet ceremony. And that's when T'Pril, April/T'Pril, broke down into tears, which is on DVD and Blu-ray for all to see, because she was given this marvelous, iconic piece of Star Trek The Experience as a gift for her 11 years of service when the place closed.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's
I
incredible.
will forever be known as the crying Vulcan, and I'm very proud to be that.
No shame there.
As well you should be.
Yeah.
Is it Vernon? Thoughts on Vulcans in general?
I think it's a tribute. Vulcans are a tribute to Gene Roddenberry's genius, taking the human condition and fractioning it out into its constituent elements and showing us that emotion, from the human side, can't function without logic, showing that Vulcans, who are logically based, cannot function 100% without emotion, that it's a balance of all of these facets that makes the human condition work.
It's easy to overlook with all the other stuff going on. That's an excellent thing to point out for people to look for.
Here in Vegas, when you play the Star Trek slot machines, which are still here and have been here since 2007, a lot of the vocals and visuals that come up on the slot machine video are from Journey to Babel, and including when you get all the McCoys in the center bar, a teddy bear, which, actually, I think those slot machines are very Journey to Babel oriented.
I think Tribbles really help. People always talk about the new JJ movies, bringing new young fans into the franchise. Well, I'll tell you what, all you need are Tribbles. Because there's this 22-year-old girl at work who had these little fuzzy deedly bops in her hair. I said, hey, you got Tribbles on your head. She's like, what? So I was like, okay, you need to watch a Star Trek episode called The Trouble with Tribbles. She was like, oh my God, it was so cool. I want more. So I gave her DVDs of More Tribbles, More Troubles, Trials and Tribulations. And then she sees the first JJ movie, or I'm sorry, the second JJ movie. And she gets, oh my God, there's a Tribble in there. Did you know there's a Tribble in there? I'm like, yeah, I know. Now she's all over it. She's Netflixing all of Star Trek, and all it took were a couple of Tribbles in her hair.
That's excellent, because I never really thought of the gateway for younger people. That is an excellent point there, Vernon.
Especially girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the original writers and casters might be a little bit upset to hear that it was Tribbles. They thought it was Chekhov. Apparently, they didn't need to hire anybody at all. All they needed was little fuzzy balls laying around.
There's a bad joke in there, son.
Yeah, I know. I always go down that road.
Oh, a little factoid about Harry Mudd, Roger C. Carmel. For you kids out there who don't know, he was the voice of Smokey the Bear for 30 years.
Oh, really?
And for those of you who lived in California, he was the spokesman for Senor Nogles, the Mexican chain of restaurants.
Yeah, I think Craig had supplied a clip of one of those commercials, and we included it on the end of our Mudd's Women episode, I believe, right, Craig?
Yeah, some of those commercials are on YouTube, and they're great to go back and
what
watch.
A time
those.
machine.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh, well, you know what? I'll pull a link for one of those, and I'll stick it in the show notes for anybody who's interested in seeing it, because seeing the video along with the audio is pretty cool.
When I was a kid in the 80s watching Star Trek on KCOP in California, the Nogles commercials would come up during Star Trek, during the reruns of Star Trek. In fact, I think I saw one during I Mudd, which was pretty cool.
That's pretty.
That's some pretty. I'd like to think that was an ambitious cable executive.
Nope, just a small world thing. No one probably had even a clue what they were doing.
Was there ever a time where somebody brought a Tribble into the experience and tried to scare one of the Klingons with it?
It happened all the time. One particular episode I want to point out is that my niece was 8 years old at the time. She loved Star Trek The Experience. She was in heaven every time we took her in there. And I was off work, so we were just sitting in Quarks with her parents. I grabbed a Tribble from retail, and Churrock, Mark White's, Commander Churrock, was in the bar doing his rounds. He's 8 feet tall. He's an imposing Klingon. And I gave this little 8-year-old girl the Tribble and said, without her knowledge, knowing, unwittingly, I said, honey, you want to take this over and hand it to the nice Klingon man? He's doing his shtick with somebody at the bar. She comes up behind him and tugs on his, the back of his uniform. He turns around and he goes, what is he? Ah! And he swats it out of her hand, and it goes flying across the bar, which instantly gave me a feeling of, oh no, that's going to scare the hell out of her. But she was giggling so hard she couldn't breathe because he was so scared of that creature. He was, you know what? The experienced actors, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the other ones. They really knew how to play. That was a split-second decision Chirac made, and it was absolutely the right one.
That's an awesome story.
Vernon's like in the top 1% of Star Trek fans, though. It's pretty amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing to have Vernon as an ally.
Yeah, you don't want him as an enemy.
Well, thank God he's on our side right now.
Oh,
I appreciate that. In fact, you guys know that Larry Nemechek, he does not let me in to the trivia contests at the convention.
Really?
So 2 years ago, when I noticed it was going on in this room next to the one I was in, I snuck in and I hid behind this rather large woman that was in line. Seriously. I'm hiding behind her in the lineup to answer the trivia questions at the microphone. And then when she's finally eliminated, he sees me standing there and he goes, okay, Vernon, okay. And he throws the cards away and he grabs this book and he goes, and he asks me a trivia question that he thinks will stump me. And of course, I blew it out of the water. And
Nice.
But to get me back, he didn't just let me have a prize that I would pick on my own accord. He tells Kayla, hand him a J.J. Abrams related prize.
Oh.
And the audience even knew, what that meant. And they were like, in fact, I think that prize went to April's granddaughter.
what is it?
It was the J.J. Abrams. It was either a communicator or a phaser. I don't know. They all look the same on that version.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yes, you did give it to Dave.
It all looks like Appleware.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, Vernon, can't you cleverly disguise yourself this time?
Yes, I will wear the Groucho Marx glasses and mustache next time.
Oh, why don't you just dress up like a giant Tribble and we can roll you in?
I'm almost there. I just need the fur. That's about it. The Tribbles were genetically manipulated to be fat and sterile. I'm thinking they must have somehow given it my genes.
Oh, man. The self-deprecation.
Oh,
I was going to say Shatner, but I thought it would be funnier if I used myself. I think that whole franchise should be put to sleep.
Well, Vernon, they just announced the new one.
What, you mean Star Wars Episode 7? That's
No.
the third Star Trek movie?
No, 2016.
Just in time for the 50th anniversary.
Yep.
Oh. So,
I guess we won't tell him who's directing it.
Oh, tell him.
it's going to be one of the writers, Orchie or Lindelof or one of those guys.
Exactly. You caught it. It's Orchie.
Yeah, maybe it might be slightly better.
Oh.
Because what I love about Orchie and Lindelof, they actually know who I am. JJ doesn't know who I am. Those guys know who I am, and they know I hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
So maybe this will be entertaining.
My biggest concern there is he's never directed a movie before.
yes, that's very true.
And here he's going to be directing a $100 million plus budget movie.
Well, he can't do any worse than
I know, because to watch a JJ movie, you'd think he'd never directed before.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Why are we slamming JJ?
I know. I'm sorry. I won't do it anymore.
Stop it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Stop.
Anyway, so we've been selecting photos, and I've asked people to send me photos, and we're going to put them in order so that when the person starts talking, I'll have the appropriate pictures to go along with what they're talking
What'd be
about.
cool is when you hit the PowerPoint icon, it goes PowerPoint. Now, do you guys remember film strips? Is anybody here as old as me? do you remember film
I do.
strips where you were the kid in the class chosen to turn the little dial to the next picture of Abraham Lincoln?
Yes, when you heard the little tone, boop.
Thank you. Yes, that's what PowerPoint is, just in a digital format.
That's right, except it's on your computer. But it works very nicely, and there's no beep.
Ricky, turn the knob, Ricky.
You'd be asleep at the wheel.
I just posted online, and maybe you'll put a link up to this, my entry for the Star Trek Convention music video contest this year. I just put it on my Facebook page. Star Trek, Oops, Upside Your Head, which features a lot of footage from Star Trek. Both Trouble with Tribbles. Well, yeah, the Trouble with Tribbles. There's some Tribble footage in there. So watch it. It's funny. You'll have a great laugh. And hey, maybe I can be the winner again this year, as usual, as always.
Well, I certainly hope so. That's the video with all of the slaps and punches, right?
Yeah, you've seen it?
Yeah, I saw when you posted a preview. You sent out like a little private note a while back and I watched it, and it is well done. It has to have been a lot of work.
Thank you. Yes, it took about 2 years to make that video. There is more bitch slapping in Star Trek than you would ever imagine until you see this video.
Yes, I will vouch for it. As a person who's seen it, it is quite funny, and I imagine when it is played in front of a large audience, there's going to be a lot of laughter there. And I will happily put a link to that.
Thank you, sir.
In the show notes.
I'm sorry, I was making a Steve Jobs joke. But it's also kind of a Borg analogy in later Star Treks that a society can become, or the Bynars, so dependent on their technology that they can't function solely biologically without the technology. We as human beings in the 21st century are definitely there. All it's going to take is one little catastrophic either geo event or extraterrestrial event. But by that I mean meteor strikes or something like that. We're going to be screwed. Mm-hmm. We won't know what the hell to do. 2% of us will survive whatever the hell is coming up. Mm. And I blame Steve Jobs.
Okay.
But I would definitely love to be a morgue because women are definitely the bringers of pain and delight.
Oh God!
That's any version of society. Women are exactly that. They could not have distilled women down to their constituent elements better than that line in that episode.
Oh my God!
The bringers of pain and delight.
Okay.
Kirk's tights.
Regardless, I don't like it.
Okay. Fine.
Wow. Well, it looks like at least we all seem to have some in common. April didn't seem to pick some of the ones that Craig and Vernon and I had in common. Vernon, you also picked Savage Curtain as well?
No, I love that episode.
Do you really?
Absolutely love that episode.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's cool that we all have different ones that we hate and love. So
yeah, and it's also cool that I'm the only one who's right. I'm kidding.
So as we wrap up, as we always do, we'll give you guys a chance to talk about some of the things that are going on in your own lives. Vernon, I'm sure the listeners would love an update on your documentary.
I've been getting some angry messages lately. They're like, you are pissing off your audience. But
wow.
I just want to let everybody know I appreciate their interest, which generates that anger, but to please appreciate the fact that I have a full-time job, which is a very intricate and a job that takes a lot of time and energy, frankly, out of my life. But every single day I am working on both the video documentary series, getting it ready for a DVD release because online hosting is just not doing it anymore. Yeah. Which will be made available through the Facebook Star Trek My Experience page. But I'm also every day working on the image archive, which is over 10,000 photos, which I almost get an addition to that archive every week.
Wow.
And I have to go through, I don't just leave those photos as they are. I go through and what I call Vernonize them, which is just optimize the visual quality as much as possible. Some of them are scans, really dusty scans, and some of them are really low quality, old school digital photos. and I'm just cleaning that stuff up. It's almost like a single person taking on remastering Star Trek: The Original Series with a computer. Right. So I am working on it every day. I appreciate everybody's interest. I just ask for a little patience and to pay attention to the Star Trek My Experience Facebook page, because there are updates on there as often as I can post them. I wanted to apologize when I saw you guys at the convention, which I think was Thursday in August. I was excited to see you guys. I wanted to hang out and chat. You guys were standing in line, but I'm sorry I was chasing that skirt.
We saw you again, though, Vernon. I guess you don't remember.
In fact, they said, they were like, Vernon took off with some girl.
Vernon, if you recall, that was only the first of maybe 3 or 4 times you took off chasing some skirt and left us standing there. So
I was probably very inebriated the next 3.
Well, I remember we were hanging out with April at the Masquerade Bar, and you came down from a party that was up in a room. And I don't remember the details, but were you missing your shirt, or did you lose a shirt, or did you have somebody else's shirt?
It was my favorite. It was my favorite shirt, and I had to go out to my truck and get my work shirt and put that on.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't know, and some girl out there has my favorite Hawaiian shirt. I have no clue where it is.
It's become somebody's souvenir of a wild night with Vernon.
Yeah.
Vernon, do you have anything else that you want to add about the My Experience, or anything else you want to plug while you're here?
Only that I'm working on it as fast as I can. My full-time job, which really absorbs a lot of my life because I'm becoming very integral in that company, eats up a lot of my time, and I'm very tired. But I want everyone to know that I've sacrificed basically my social life and all my free time to do nothing but work on this series and try to kick it out as quick as I can. And that I appreciate everybody's interest in it, because it's the only thing I can do to preserve what the place was and tell my story about it, and just relay my excitement about it.
Yeah, well, I know we're very, very excited to see the updated videos, and those are the episodes that you would put up. I watched quite a few times, and I know there was a lot of people out there that are have very fond memories of the experience, and rightfully so. It was a real special place, and we're glad we were able to experience it a couple of times, and we were so glad we were able to connect with you in April and get a little bit more of the story.
It was absolutely our pleasure.
I can totally relate to you forsaking your social life to do creative things, and I totally understand, but I'm hoping that it's not so sacrificed that we don't see you at the convention this summer.
I can't miss the convention. That's,
awesome.
My pre-experience days, Star Trek conventions for me were like the same for anybody else. Just go there and bask in the Star Trek goodness and meet the people. Nowadays, for me, it's absolutely necessary pilgrimage. I have to go there to see my colleagues, my friends, even fans. I had people asking for autographs last year. That was incredible.
That's
beautiful.
Awesome.
And I believe this year, if April is correct, we're speaking on a panel again.
She had mentioned that.
I think we did that in 2010, 2009 or 10.
That's
and
awesome.
We'll be doing that again.
Yeah, we can't wait to. We're actually going. This will be our first year going, so the Tricorder Transmissions crew will be at the convention. So the button has been pressed, the pod has been jettisoned, and we're committed. So we're going to be there.
You guys are up for some drinks.
Oh,
we
definitely.
Already marked out some room on the calendar. Penciled in. It says Vernon time,
which implies alcohol. So yes, that sounds like a plan.
Very much looking forward to that.
No, I just want to thank you, Vernon, for taking the time out to come on and talk about your favorite episode with us, and for also giving us the My Experience updates earlier.
My pleasure. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, of course. And we'll continue to plug My Experience and the experience itself on our show. We've been evangelizing it for a long time, so we'll keep plugging it for you.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
Great, and we'll see you in Vegas.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I will be there.
Very cool, man. Take it easy.
So that was our tribute to our friend Vernon Wilmer. Our sincerest condolences to his family and friends. very sorry for your loss. There's a lot more of Vernon in those early episodes, so if you're looking to hear any of those, you can look at our supplemental log episodes 1, 9, 11, 18, and 24. And he's also on our original mission episode number 35, talking about his favorite Star Trek episode, The Doomsday Machine. So, once again, rest in peace, Vernon. You'll be very missed.